Can you feel the excitement in the air? It's the College Football Playoff National Championship tonight, and it's College Football Daily live right now. Cam Rogers coming at you alongside my awesome analysts here, Tom Downey, Brian Rauf. We're going to break down the entire game. Don't you worry, but we got plenty of more fun segments as well, some more interviews, and a way too early top 25. Before we get to all of that, we are here at Playoff Fan Central. We've got the pep rally going on right behind us. We have the Georgia Bulldog band going wild. We got the crowd in the stands. Look, the crowds are showing up for the bands. They didn't show up for the Cam Rogers show at 10 o'clock, but they just opened the door, so I'll give them a pass, guys.
A little early for that, I think.
Yeah, a little early for that, and I'll tell you, it's a fun atmosphere here today.
Oh, absolutely. This is the first time I think we've had a real 50-50 split of fans. The Bama fans have come in later this week. Weren't really here this weekend, but showed up today in advance of the game. We have the Bama pep rally after this one. So it's just going to be a full afternoon of build-up and more fun until tonight's game.
Tom, really fun in many respects for you, of course, as a mock draft analyst. You get to watch some tape live at the game tonight.
It'll be great.
And you get to be a part of all the fun as well.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking forward to tonight. I think the fans here, I don't think everyone here is actually going to the game. That's kind of the vibe we got when talking with them, that some of them were just here to do the fan stuff and then watch the game at a bar or maybe go to the game if they're able to. Not cheap tickets for this game.
No, definitely not. And Atlanta, one of the great sports cities out there, so seeing a lot of excitement, especially from the Georgia Bulldogs fans. So, okay, we're going to get to that game, go through the X's and O's later in the program. We'll start things off, though, with our way too early top 25. And we're going to start things off with teams that just missed out on the rankings. So we'll start there and then work our way up. So let's go to it right now. Our team right off the board, Texas A&M, the Aggies, Tom.
I'm curious to see how they fare with Jimbo Fisher at the helm. I think maybe they'll be a little bit more consistent later in the year, but I think A&M's going to take some time to kind of get settled a little bit. They are going to lose Christian Kirk. That's a big loss on the offense.
I agree. I think we'll see them get off to a slow start as they adjust to the Jimbo Fisher regime. I think they will get stronger as the year goes on, as they get more comfortable with him, and I think they'll finish the year pretty strong, but I don't know if they're a top 25 team.
Texas A&M just missing out on our rankings. How about another team? Kansas State, not ranked here.
Kansas State, it's going to be more of the same under Bill Snyder. They're going to be a really good team. I think they just missed the cut for our top 25.
Yeah, they're going to be consistent. You know what you're going to get from them like you do every year. They'll win 8 or 9 games or so and be a solid team right in there in the Big 12.
A lot of competition in the Big 12 as well, always difficult in that regard. All right, next team that just missed out, Boise State, Tom.
You know, I saw some early stuff that had Boise in the top 25. I don't know if they're actually a good football team. I don't think they're that well coached. They had some quarterback controversy this year. I think Boise State will kind of get the hype as well of, oh, it's Boise. Then they've kind of earned that brand name, but I don't think they're actually that good, Brian.
There'll be somebody who, like usual, kind of sneak in at the bottom part of that top 25 as the year goes on, as teams lose and they beat up on some lesser Mountain West opponents. I don't think they're necessarily worthy of a preseason top 25 ranking, but as we've seen in the past, they'll probably work their way in there with some 10-win season, probably, I would say.
Boise State checking in the just missed out category. Florida added to that list. Dan Mullen, the effect, not enough to get in the rank call.
I would like to put in the top 25, but I have no idea what they're going to do on offense next year. And I'm a big fan of Dan Mullen, but there's too much uncertainty on that offense and what they're actually going to be able to do with the ball to have them rank the top 25 for now.
Yeah, the talent is there for sure, but again, as is tradition with this Florida team, there's a major question mark at quarterback. And with Dan Mullen coming in, he wants his quarterbacks to be mobile. They got Emory Jones, a 4-star quarterback, coming in as a freshman. Is he going to start right away? Is that the answer? Because then again, you have the problem with starting a freshman quarterback. So once those questions get figured out, we'll have a better idea of how good this Gators team will be next year.
And we know there are pieces on defense as well, something to watch out there for the Gators. The Memphis Tigers just missing out in our rankings. Riley Ferguson, no more.
And that's why he's not. I would have loved to put Memphis in that list, but if there's no Riley Ferguson, I think the offense will be good again.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're worthy of a preseason top 25. They could finish, 24, 25, somewhere in that range, but as of right now, just not fair.
They're still one of the better group of 5 schools. There's too much turnover. We need to see them prove it on the field.
So we're going through our way too early top 25 rankings. Just went through the teams that just missed out in the rankings. We're live here from Playoff Fan Central in Atlanta, Georgia, where, of course, the College Football Playoff National Championship game will go down. Cam Rogers alongside Tom Downey, Brian Rauf. We're breaking it all down for you. We've got the pep rally going on right behind us. How about this for timing of our broadcast?
It's perfect. That's perfect.
Gotta love it. A lot of excitement behind us. We'll continue to talk about it as we go throughout the broadcast. as we remind you the teams that just missed out in our rankings: A&M, Kansas State, Boise State, Florida, and Memphis. Now, let's get into the meat of the segment here. Let's get into the rankings. Number 25, the Texas Longhorns.
Texas is back.
Are they?
Not,
officially?
No, they're not.
How many times are we going to say that?
Every time until it's actually true, and then for 2 years afterward.
Fair enough.
They have a lot to build on, though, I will say. A strong finish this season under Tom Herman. Their defense was probably one of, if not the best in the Big 12 in conference play. Get some stability in the quarterback position, but after that, it'll be all right.
I think they're two very different sides of the ball right now for Texas. The defense was great last year. They are returning quite a bit of talent on that side of the ball, but they're losing Malik Jefferson. Holton Hill is gone. Deshaun Elliott's gone. They might lose another piece or two if some guys declare early as well. So the defense, I think, will still be good. And then on the offense, almost everyone returns except for left tackle Connor Williams. But the offense wasn't exactly good last year, and that's the concern. So Buechele and Sam Ehlinger, Shane Buechele and Sam Ehlinger, the quarterbacks, will continue to battle for that starting job. I'm sure we'll see both at various points next year. But they got to be more consistent on the ground. That's huge. They got some nice pieces at receiver, but they need to be able to run the ball more effectively.
Somewhat of a surprising victory against Missouri. Missouri went into that bowl game with a lot of momentum, so 33-16 score, something to build upon for the Texas Longhorns program. They are at number 25 in our rankings. Number 24, the South Carolina Gamecocks, big-time victory over those Michigan Wolverines, Brian.
That was an unexpected victory, I would say. I think Michigan probably has more talent top to bottom on the roster, but Gamecocks rallied together, finished with a 9-win season. Will Muschamp's second year. Things are looking up for the Gamecocks. 70% of the roster this year was made up of freshmen and sophomores, so it's only going to get better, I think, in Columbia.
Debo Samuel coming back, too. He's a stud.
Exactly.
He's no Farrell Cooper, but he's pretty darn good.
He was on the fringe of the Heisman race before he got hurt the first couple weeks of the season.
Yeah, just how good of a job has Muschamp done with the Gamecocks?
He's done a great job. When he got there, they won 3 seasons the year before, had lost to the Citadel, to kind of give you an idea of how far they had to go. And Steve Spurrier's last few years in Columbia, they didn't really recruit that well, so the cupboard was pretty bare when he got there. That's part of the reason why you're seeing so many freshmen and sophomores play, is that they needed depth and they needed talent on the field, which they didn't have on the roster, which Muschamp has since gone out and gotten. They still need some depth, still need to see those guys sort of take another step and improve, but everything's there. Everything's in place now.
18th ranked recruiting class, nothing to sneeze at for sure. So there's South Carolina checking in at number 24. How about number 23, Mississippi State? Joe Moorhead at the helm now, Tom.
I'm really excited to see what kind of offense he brings. It was not the same offense that Dan Mullen ran, of course, so that's not a surprise there. But Fitzgerald's going to come back from that injury. Harris Williams is still there. Williams could be in for the Moorhead bump. Can we start calling it that? Kind of like what he gave to McSorley and Barkley. I'm excited to see the offense. I think Moorhead, he's had head coach experience at a lesser level. I think he could be a great fit at Mississippi State, but the offense will still run through Fitzgerald, who was incredible before he went down.
Yeah, I agree. The problem with any of these hires in the lower tier of the SC West, or basically the non-Alabama LSU tier, Auburn tier, is what's the ceiling? You know, because you're going to keep running those guys, you're going to keep running those guys, and chances are you don't have what it takes to get over that. I think Moorhead, it'll take probably a year or two for him to put really his stamp on the program, the guys he wants to in there, because there's still more of the Dan Mullen sort of ground and pound style that we didn't see Penn State run. He likes the more spread downfield attack. So they'll be good, but I think we may be in for another 9-win, 8-win season from them.
And I think that SEC West thing is a big deal for those Mississippi schools. It's like, well, you know, you get to that 9-win, 10 wins, it's a heck of a year, but can you actually win the SEC West? And as of right now, that answer's probably not.
It's always a big test.
Yeah, exactly.
Mississippi State there at number 23 in our way too early top 25 rankings. Cam Rogers alongside Tom Downey and Brian Rauf as we are here at the Fan Central, where it is getting very exciting behind us. The band is going wild. The crowd loves it. Pep rally action as we get you set for the title game tonight. Moving along in our rankings here. Number 22, Florida State. And the turnover, Jimbo Fisher, see you later. How's that going to work out, Tom?
Well, I think in the end we'll see a team that is not as good as everyone thought they were going to be this year, but it's not as bad as they ended up being. I think the return of DeAndre Francois, I know Blackman's still there, but you got to imagine Francois is going to be the quarterback.
100%.
I was watching the bowl game. The ESPN guys were saying, hey, maybe Blackman wins the job. I'm like, did we watch the same guy all year? He still needs a redshirt
The thing with that, too, people forget how good Francois was as a freshman.
Oh yeah. So I think what really concerns me for FSU is losing some big beats on the defensive side of the ball. Josh Sweat, Tavares McFadden, Derwin James are all turning pro. Now they've recruited pretty well over the past few years, so they should be able to replace those guys. But those are big players that everyone thought was going to be a major part of a championship run. Now they're gone after a down year. How does the defense bounce back?
Willie Taggart's a really good coach. We saw that throughout his career. We saw it at USF. We saw it in his 1 year at Oregon, taking a 4-win team, turning him to a 7-win team. The question, I think, for me, they have more talent than everybody in the ACC, with the exception of Clemson and maybe Miami now. So they're going to be able to get by on talent alone in a couple games. Depending on how their schedule sets out, if those games are early in the season, you could see them build some momentum and potentially be a factor in the ACC late in the year.
All right, there are the Seminoles there at number 22. Checking in at number 21, Oregon. Tom, I have a feeling this has to do with the health of the quarterback.
If Justin Herbert's healthy, this is a team that I think will compete for the Pac-12 championship this year, because Herbert is an incredible player. The offense looked much better last year ever since Taggart arrived with the rough ending of the Mark Helfrich era. The defense returns quite a few notable players. Troy Dye, their linebacker, is coming back. He's going to be a stud. The offense, really, outside of Royce Freeman, which is a big loss, and Tyrell Crosby, for the most part, they're all kind of coming back. So this should be a really good Oregon team. Now we're going to see how Cristobal coaches as opposed to just recruiting.
Right.
Yeah, I believe they were 6-1 last year when Herbert was healthy. To kind of give you an idea of, they ended up with 5 losses too. So that kind of gives you an idea of just the kind of impact that Herbert can make on that offense.
Oregon there at number 21. Number 20, West Virginia on our list here, and Will Grier, he's coming back.
That's a big, big boost for West Virginia. To have Grier back, I think is the difference between them being a top 20 team that I think can legitimately push for the Big 12 title, or a team that is out to the top 25 and is the Oklahoma State category, where you lost your quarterback, you lost one of your best receivers, you are not in the top 25. So it's a big get for West Virginia. He's going to be the focal point of that offense once again.
I was really high on West Virginia this year. I thought they would win the Big 12 this year. That was kind of a dark horse pick. Maybe it was a year ahead of schedule. I think a second year of Grier back in the system, defense getting a little bit better, a little young team this year, a little bit more experience. I could see them potentially rising up from that number 20 ranking.
I am curious how they replace Justin Crawford, their halfback. Now they got some guys who had plenty of carries, but Crawford was kind of the focal point of that ground game. The good news is David Sills is back once again. He'll score a bunch of touchdowns, and although Kazir White, the safety, is leaving, linebacker David Long will be returned. So the defense still has some good pieces. Compared to the rest of the Big 12, it's a pretty good defense.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not tough ranks to go up against.
Cornerback Mike Hughes could declare.
That's UCF. We'll get there.
You're right. That is UCF. Right. Great foreshadowing.
There we go.
UCF checking in at number 19 in our way too early top 25. And Mackenzie Milton. And there's Mike Hughes at corner, who could declare.
If Hughes comes back, that's a huge boost for that secondary for UCF. I would imagine he'll go pro. He's not listed as notable losses yet because he hasn't decided, but he'll be a day 2 pick at the least. And if you're a day 2 pick, you probably just go ahead and go pro.
Yeah, especially at a school like UCF, you're not going to really be able to put a lot on tape against quality competition that you haven't already, especially with the year that UCF just had. It makes too much sense for him to go out and get his money now.
I think really the biggest loss was not Shaquem Griffin, as good as he is. It was probably actually head coach Scott Frost.
Absolutely. We saw a difference in going from 0-12 to 13-0 this year in 2 seasons. You're going to get some pushback from that. Now you're the hunted, and everyone's kind of aiming for you. They have the talent to win 10 games again in a tough American conference, so they'll still be a top team and worthy of a top 20 preseason ranking. But we're not going to see them go 13-0 again.
I do want to see Milton become more of a better passer. He showed some ability, but that first half of the Peach Bowl, he was awful through the air. He had nothing going, and then it kind of clicked afterwards. I am very curious to see how Josh Heupel fares as the coach. This is a pretty decent spot to be in. Maybe it's kind of like Charlie Strong last year with South Florida to keep it kind of local. A good team returns their stud quarterback as a good core around them, but you're losing a good coach, and I don't think you're going to have another undefeated Central Florida team that claims the national title.
They're not going to be national champs again. I'll go on a limb and say that.
It's a one-time thing. You can only do that once.
Yeah.
All right, UCF there at number 19 at our rankings. Coming up next, USC and Sam Darnold. See you later. Who comes in next, Tom?
I think that's the million-dollar question for USC right now. Matt Fink or Jack Sears kind of seem like the two current guys on the roster. Sears and Fink are both pretty highly touted recruits. Sears redshirted this year. It's a big, big question mark for USC, and had Darnold returned, they probably would have been a top 10 team for everyone in mind. The good news is for USC, Tyler Vaughn, Stephen Carr are both back, the receiver and the halfback. That'll make life a little bit easier on their quarterback, but Look, there's a reason we have the quarterback position listed on all these graphics here. It's the most important spot in college football.
Yeah, now, last time they had a quarterback competition was between Max Brown and Darnold, and that went a few games into the year. And there was always a slow start. They were playing as hot as anybody at the end of that year, but ended up in the Rose Bowl in that classic matchup against Penn State, winning that game. If they didn't get off of that slow start, they would have been in the playoff probably. So the key for them will be identifying your top quarterback early, whoever that is, and avoiding that slow start.
Pretty good recruiting rank, too, 10th.
Yeah, it's been a good class for USC. They kind of rallied late. They had a bit of a slow start.
It was a very slow start, actually,
they've very much picked up lately. The good news is the defense is returning a lot of the key guys. Porter, Gustin's coming back on the guys. Amon Marshall will be back. So the defense should be pretty solid. What actually maybe outside of quarterback, the offensive line has to be better. I mean, we saw it in the bowl game. They didn't give Sam Darnold a chance to do anything. So that offensive line has to be better with a younger quarterback at the helm.
All right, so there is USC at number 18. Checking in at number 17, TCU. And, Tom, what stands out to you here? I love that Rager's coming back. I think he's a stud for sure.
Big boost there. TCU kind of in a similar spot to USC. They're losing their big-name quarterback. They've got plenty of talent also returning, but it's going to be a battle there between a couple different guys. I think you'll see freshman Justin Rogers, a true freshman who's coming in, will get a legitimate shot to win that job. Sean Robinson is the returner, with returner in quotes, because there just aren't a ton of guys there. So, or at least he didn't take a ton of snaps. So that's going to be the big question mark around TCU. The good news is I will always trust Gary Patterson to get the most out of these guys.
Exactly. That's the big factor with them. They're recruiting better now. They've established themselves as one of the premier teams in the Big 12. I think it's pretty safe that they'll be a ranked team all season long.
TCU at number 17, an hour way too early, 2018 top 25 rankings. How about number 16 now? LSU, Ed Orgeron. No losses to Troy coming up this year, right, Tom?
I would hope not for his sake, otherwise I think he might be looking for another job again.
Man.
Kind of the last three teams we all discussed have a very similar issue. Who the hell is their quarterback?
Yeah.
And with LSU, I think maybe it's the biggest of all the three because...
Well, when have we not asked that question about LSU, though?
Long time.
You know?
Long time. And LSU in particular, I'm looking at the guys on the roster. Justin McMillan, maybe he gets a shot. Maybe a guy like Miles Brennan. But they have not recruited the position well. They have not developed it well either. LSU, I think, is in a really rough spot at quarterback. The good news is their defense is going to be stacked again. The rest of the team should be in pretty good shape as well.
It'll be a classic LSU team that doesn't rely really any at all on the passing game. Tough defense, tries to find a dominant rushing attack, establish that. And we've seen in the past that leads to 10-win seasons after 10-win season after 10-win season. So I think it's a pretty safe bet that they'll win 9 or 10 games, and if they can get something out of the quarterback position, they could contend with the Alabamas and Auburns at the top of that division.
And I'm curious how that ground game turns out because Geis is,
exactly.
we assume, is going to be gone. He's still eligible, but there's no way he stays. And then Darrell Williams, the backup, is also a senior. So going to be a new regime at halfback for LSU.
Exactly.
LSU there at number 16. We are live from the Georgia World Congress Center here at Playoff Fan Central as we get you set for Alabama and Georgia tonight, the College Football Playoff National Championship game. Cam Rogers alongside Tom Downey, Brian Rauf. We're breaking down that game and going through all of the top 25 rankings for 2018. If you are wondering what's going on behind us, we got a little pep rally action. So I believe the Georgia band is still on the field. They are. Alabama will be right after them. So it'll be kind of cool to see how Alabama does. It's kind of like a competition within the competition, right? Band versus band. So we'll see how that all goes about. But we'll continue our broadcast here as we take a look at number 15 in our rankings, Michigan. What do we make of number 15 as we take a look at the recap of 25 through 21, Texas, South Carolina, etc. And then we'll get into the 20s through 16, and we left off with LSU. 15, Michigan, Shea Patterson, the X Factor.
Look, if he's eligible, I think you'll see a lot of top 10 hype around Michigan. But if he's not, look, we saw how Brandon Peters fared in the bowl game. We saw how the offense really fared all year. When they could run the ball, it was a good team. They won games. When teams were able to stop the run and make Michigan pass it, they had serious issues.
Yeah, and the defense is going to be as good as they've ever been this year. So even if the offense isn't good, I think we'll see them improve by a win or two off their 8-5 record from this past season. The question will be, can Brandon Peters develop if Shea Patterson isn't eligible? And if Shea Patterson is eligible, how quickly can he pick up the offense and how quickly does Jim Harbaugh and his coaching staff trust him to throw the ball down the field?
The defense is going to be I think it might be better than last year because they do lose Maurice Hurst, who's probably going to be a first-round pick. Mike McCray will be drafted as well. But for the most part, all their key players are back. Their secondary is still very young. Devin Bush and Rashawn Gary are going to be studs again. You'll probably see them on the All-American preseason
Chase
list.
Winovich is back. He's another candidate for that as well.
We saw Aubrey Solomon play more and more. Later in the year, he was a big part of that defense. But in the end, it's going to come down to quarterback for Michigan, and that's really not a surprise. And if Brandon Peters is the starter all year or somebody else that's not named Shea Patterson, maybe we're more concerned about Michigan and where they rank. But if Patterson plays, he was a highly touted recruit. He showed a lot of ability at Ole Miss. He could be a great fit for Michigan's offense if they kind of tweak it to be a little more spread style. You could maybe see them finally push against Ohio State, against Penn State to actually win the Big Ten East. And if they win the Big Ten East, we'll have playoff discussions around again.
Absolutely. And we've seen a common thread with these teams, 15 to 20. Their seasons go either way depending on that quarterback play.
All right, so Michigan, taking a look at them at number 15. Number 14, Virginia Tech, Justin Fuente and company, Tom.
I love what Fuente has done at Virginia Tech. There had been some buzz he could be an option for some of the bigger jobs that were open, and I was kind of like, I don't buy that. I think Virginia Tech's a good spot to be. I think Fuente feels the same way, and he's got his quarterback in Josh Jackson. That's a big boost there. Now, they do lose wide receiver Cam Phillips, and that's going to be a big loss. They didn't throw it a lot, the Hokies did this year, but when they did, it frequently went to Cam Phillips. You'll see him on Sundays in the NFL. Most of the ground game returns. The offensive line is in pretty good shape. They lose a couple players on defense, but Ricky Walker's back. This should be a Vatech team that once again is the top 15 for much of the year, and the top 25 pretty much all year long, and will be a dark horse pick to win the ACC.
I think we'll see their offense open up a little bit more now that Jackson's going into his sophomore year. I think they had some reservations about trusting him as a freshman, some of which were warranted when they played against good teams, which is another concern I have about Virginia Tech is that we know that they're solid, and we saw this year they'll beat up on lesser teams they're supposed to beat, but they didn't show enough talent to compete with the top teams they played, the Miamis and the Clemson and teams like that. Those games weren't even close, and although they may have closed the gap on the scoreboard of late, they were really blowouts. And so I don't know if they've had enough to really overcome that and put themselves in that tier. I think we could see them sit in this 15-14 range all year as they win the games they're supposed to, but lose the games they're also supposed to lose.
All right, so Virginia Tech there at number 14 in our rankings, and we're about halfway through here. As you can see, the band is walking by us right now. Go Dogs! We're impartial here on the broadcast, of course, but we got to get everybody riled up here. So let's continue along in our rankings here. Number 13, Stanford. The big question here, Tom, Bryce Love, does he or don't he?
I would imagine he'll go pro because there's not a whole lot that Bryce Love has left to prove except to be a pass catcher, and I don't know if Stanford would use him in that way. And if that's not the case, he should just go pro. Halfbacks have a short shelf life, and that's the big concern for Stanford is the offense. When Bryce Love wasn't playing, they had nothing going on offense. All the defense was a Stanford defense all year long, but if they can't move the ball on offense, they're not going to finish 13. They're going to end up finishing much lower.
Well, we saw with Melvin Gordon in Wisconsin, he wasn't a great pass catcher out of the backfield in college either. That didn't stop him from being a really high draft pick, so I don't think it'll stop Bryce Love either should he come out. And given what we know about head trauma and football concussions, if you're a running back especially, you usually leave to get your money early when you can to kind of extend your career. I think we'll see their offense be a little bit better this year with KJ Costello kind of firmly entrenched as a starter. He took over full-time about halfway through the year, and they, with Bryce Love and a first-time starting quarterback, really relied on that running game to carry things for them. I don't think that'll be as much the case. Costello's shown a lot of ability, and when David Shaw has had a quality quarterback that he trusts, he's opened up the playbook and thrown the ball a bit more. I think we'll see more of that from Stanford this year, but that's not to say that they're not going to heavily rely on the run game, even if Bryce Love does go pro.
I want to see one of these quarterbacks develop. I mean, Stanford has recruited very well at the quarterback position. A bunch of highly touted guys like Keller Christ, who never really became the 4- or 5-star guy everyone thought they were supposed to be. Costello is the rare Stanford quarterback outside of Luck to actually play pretty young in the recent years, so I would hope to think that Costello makes a big leap forward this year. He's got the size and the arm strength. Now we just want to see more consistency and accuracy.
Stanford at number 13 in our way too early 2018 top 25. Let's take a look at number 12 here. Washington and Gaskin unclear as we stand. Tom, a lot of running backs are actually unclear, it seems.
Well, it's a loaded class. I think that's part of the inner concern of like, ooh, it's a really good class, but ooh, I'm a running back. I should probably go pro early. So Gaskin is a little bit small, has a little bit more passing game work as well. He'll be a draft pick. He'll go either late day 2, early day 3, I think, if he does decide to go pro. And even without Gaskin, I think Washington's still in pretty good shape. They also lose Dante Pettis, their stud receiver. But Jake Browning's back. He's a very accurate quarterback. Taylor Rapp is back to kind of lead that secondary. They'll also miss Vita Vea, the defensive tackle, who's going to be a stud in the NFL. But this is a good Washington. Chris Peterson's done a fantastic job.
Yes.
They've recruited pretty well. I think they should be the favorite in the Pac-12 once again.
Yeah, I think we'll end up seeing them have sort of a similar year.
Yeah,
I think 2 years ago they made the playoff. That was sort of the perfect storm of their schedule and the amount of talent they had on the roster. And they've lost those guys now and are replacing them with top recruiting classes. But those guys aren't experienced enough to really make an impact on the playoff caliber level. They'll still be in contention for the Pac-12 title. They'll be a top 15 team all season long, especially with Browning at quarterback, but I don't think they have enough proven talent around him for them to really be a legit threat for a playoff berth.
All right.
It's notable here. No teams from the Pac-12 in the top 10, and I think that's what we'll see pretty much across the board for much of the year because there's not an obvious playoff threat. Washington's going to be in a lot of teams' minds, but if they lose a lot of key players and USC doesn't have Darnold, I don't think anyone trusts Stanford.
That can change if Bryce Love comes back, though.
Very good point. Very good point.
Washington checking in at number 12 in our rankings. Let's take a look at number 11 here, Notre Dame. And this is an interesting one here because you got McGlinchey leaving, Quentin Nelson leaving, so offensive line has some holes.
I'm pretty concerned about the Notre Dame offense altogether because Josh Adams is also leaving. EQ St. Brown, the receiver, has also turned pro as well. That's what concerns me about Notre Dame is Brandon Wimbush, we know, can run the football. Ian Book took over for the bowl game because Wimbush is really not 100% yet, but Wimbush is not a great thrower yet.
No.
And if teams a little bit later in the year found ways to stop the Notre Dame ground game, and now you lose your star halfback, your star guard, your star tackle, all three of them are going to be early NFL draft picks. Two of them will probably go in the first round, at least on the offensive line guys. Yeah. Adams will probably go day 2 or early day 3. How do you move the ball on offense going forward then? Do you just kind of fill in somebody else at those positions and stick with that ground game, or do you try and get Wimbush in the spring up to speed in the passing game more and more?
Well, I think the preseason ranking is largely based on the assumption that Wimbush improves at least some as a passer. They have enough depth at running back to where somebody else will step in and fill that role, not to the extent that Jacobs was in. But the offense, even if it is a problem, they have enough talent around them, especially on defense, I think. And the way they played at home this year, they're virtually unbeatable at home this year. Their losses came away from South Bend. Yep. If they can repeat that success, they'll be in good shape.
A lot of the key guys on defense are returning this year for Notre Dame, but what gives me pause on that side of the ball, defensive coordinator Mike Elko is gone. He's going to Texas A&M. That's going to be a notable loss for the Fighting Irish because he was a great hire. Now he's off with Jimbo Fisher. The defense is still going to be good again, I think, this year, but just a little concerned about how they properly replace him.
Yeah. So there's Notre Dame at number 11. Our top 10 is coming up in a matter of seconds, but we remind you we are here at Playoff Fan Central. The Alabama band is about to come in. I see them lined up right outside. Some of the cheerleaders already walked in, so the Crimson Tide faithful getting set to see their band go at it. Cam Rogers, Tom Downey, Brian Rauf, we're breaking down the College Football Playoff National Championship game as well as going through these top 25 rankings here for 2018. Let's summarize what we have so far before we get into the top 10. Texas, South Carolina, Mississippi State, Florida, and Oregon, 25 through 21 there. And then 20 through 16, West Virginia, UCF, USC, TCU, and LSU. And then 15 through 11 here, we've got Michigan, Virginia Tech, Stanford, Washington, and Notre Dame. So there you go. There's the summary for you. Let's get into the meat of the top 10 now. Penn State checking in at number 10 here. The Nittany Lions with Saquon Barkley gone and, of course, Moorhead no longer there. Some pieces to kind of fill.
Yeah, I think that's what concerned the most because McSorley was great the past few years ever since he took over as a starting quarterback. It's much different for him now. Miles Sanders is a really good halfback that they recruited to eventually replace Barkley, but he's not Saquon Barkley. I don't think really anyone is on this Penn State team. So you're going to have McSorley without really his 3 best offensive players. Mike Gesicki's gone, Deshaun Hamilton's gone, Barkley's gone, and you lose your OC, which will help elevate the offense around him. They're going to be a good team, but I don't know if they're going to be as good as they were this year or even last year down the stretch.
The question with them will come down to McSorley and how well he plays because this is his team. This is his team now. He's one of the better quarterbacks in the country. He's going to go into the season as a top Heisman contender. They're going to have to rely on him to win them games. The running game will come along, but it's not going to be as dominant as it was this year with Saquon Barkley. They're going to rely on him as the experienced quarterback, and so as he goes, Penn State's going to go.
All right, so there's Penn State there at number 10, 11-3 this season, and all things considered, guys, playing in the Big Ten East. It's not so bad.
It's a very good year for Penn State. I mean,
Yeah.
let's not pretend.
Absolutely.
I mean, for where Penn State was at a turning point in the past couple of years where things could have really gone south for them and they would have never recovered. But Bill O'Brien and James Franklin, their 2 hires, have been fantastic ones, and they've been huge for the program itself to keep them in place and to get that program back, always competing for the Big Ten.
Yep.
In a thin wide receiver class, Tom, Deshaun Hamilton, where does he go?
You know, Hamilton's an interesting guy for me. I haven't had a chance to watch too much tape. I think he could end up being kind of one of those bigger slot receivers who kind of lines up in the slot and is able to get open with his size and become a reliable safety blanket. I don't think he's going to be the big, deep threat. I don't think he's a #1 receiver, but if you're looking for a 2 or even a 3, if you have a really good tight end, I think a guy like Hamilton is a good fit for you.
The Big Ten East, one of the more difficult divisions to predict. We have a reaction poll for the folks at home. Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Michigan State. Who's the favorite in the Big Ten East? Submit your votes right now. And look, you can make an argument for any of those 4.
You really can, especially if Michigan does have Shea Patterson. I'm assuming, Brian, that you're on board with Ohio State being the favorite.
Yeah,
Again.
I think the question, I think it comes down to Ohio State and Michigan, and the questions at quarterback, because both of them, Michigan's got their questions, Ohio State's got to replace J.T. Barrett. I think Ohio State has better potential replacements in Dwayne Haskins or Tate Martell. Looks kind of like Tate Martell, but Haskins has a big arm. No matter which direction you go with that, I think Ohio State will have the advantage, and I think has more talent sort of around the quarterback, and especially on defense as well. So I'd give the edge to Ohio State again.
I think we often overlook them, but Michigan State returns a lot of guys this year. They
Yes.
have a lot of their talent coming back from a really good year. Now, they had some close wins, but they did their job. I am not going to count them out as well. It's going to be, once again, a loaded Big Ten East with
Yes.
a lot of good teams.
All right, folks, submit those votes. We'll be tracking them as we are at Playoff Fan Central here in the Georgia World Congress Center. The Alabama Crimson Tide Band is getting set to go for their pep rally. They're waltzing in. They're trickling in right now. They're getting ready to roll here. The cheerleaders, the dancers, all that jazz, ready to go for Alabama. And, hey, if you have any questions about the game tonight, feel free to submit them in the comments section. We'll be sure to address them throughout the broadcast here. All right, let's continue on in our rankings. Talked about Penn State at number 10. Number 9, Auburn, Jarrett Stidham remaining in Auburn, Tom.
That's the good news. The bad news is a lot of their other guys have left. Jeff Holland's going pro. Carlton Davis is going pro. Both their top halfbacks, Kerryon Johnson, Cameron Petway, they've all gone pro. So Auburn is losing quite a few guys, plus guard Brandon Smith graduated as well. A guy like Derek Brown is going to be a big boost for that Auburn defense. He's coming back again. Stidham has to be more consistent. That's the biggest thing for me. He showed the flashes, but he would have games where he was just almost a non-factor.
Yeah, their defense is going to be good no matter who they lose because they recruit so well on that side of the ball. Stidham, I think a lot of the inconsistency came with either lack of offensive line play and the fact that he was off for essentially a whole year and a half and didn't play any football. And so I think with the coming off a year where he played well, played in a lot of big games, played well in a lot of those big games, in spurts, in some cases. A lot of times the Alabama game was probably the best game he played in his entire career. He'll be better. Consistency is the key, but I think we'll see that because of the experience he gained this year.
How important is it that Gus Malzahn is remaining in Auburn?
It's going to be a question. His job security is going to be a question every year at Auburn until they win another national championship.
That's fair.
And that will only buy him another year
or two
until he's on the hot
seat
seat
again. The rumors will swirl every season.
Yeah.
I'm actually curious how Auburn runs the ball next year because Petway's gone, Johnson is gone. They've recruited pretty well at the spot, but for whatever reason, the Gus Malzahn offense last year loved to just hand it off to Petway or Johnson no matter what. Even if Johnson was banged up, and I think that kind of stunted Stidham's growth. But with the two-star halfbacks gone, Stidham has to become the guy going forward for Auburn.
I agree.
Maybe not Cam Newton level, but he's got to be a lot better.
They're going to have to rely on the quarterback more like they did with Cam Newton. That's really the only year Auburn's offense has put a lot of emphasis on the quarterback as opposed to their running backs.
Well, they certainly had their bright moments this year, the Auburn Tigers did. They're there at number 9 in our rankings. Number 8 now, the Michigan State Spartans. The Workie, L.J. Scott coming back, quarterback, running back, respectively.
Felton Davis, the stud receiver, is also back. Frankly, Michigan State does not lose much this year. This should be a really good Sparty team. I think this year kind of proved that the previous year was a fluke. That's not going to be the case under Mark D'Antonio. And I think this is going to be another really good Spartan team. Brian Lewerke can run, but if Michigan State's going to win the Big Ten or make it to the college football playoff, he has to improve as a passer. He's still not that accurate. He still goes in spurts. His best games have come when he's been able to use his legs. Better teams will take that away. He has got to be a better passer.
I have questions about him, especially under pressure when facing pressure. He sometimes gets a little trigger happy, makes some bad decisions. But There could be a real dark horse in the Big Ten. They won 10 games this year. Like you said, don't really lose anybody. The key for them is we know what they are on defense every single year under D'Antonio, but they have the offensive weapons, and they're all back. And so the consistency of that unit against good defenses that they're going to run into in the Big Ten East, like in Michigan, like in Ohio State, that'll be the key for them.
They do lose linebacker Chris Fry. The good news is Joe Bocci was just as good, if not better, this year for Michigan State. So he'll kind of be the stud on that defense that just racks up tackles, as Michigan so often does at linebacker.
Well, how about that bowl game, too, guys? 42-17 against a good Washington State Cougars team. I mean, that was somewhat highly ranked at many points this year.
That bowl game is why Washington State's not ranked.
Yeah.
Because Tyler Hilinski does not look great.
No, and they weren't great defensively this year either. They got into a lot of shootouts, Washington State did. So part of that was Michigan State and the ability of their offense, but also Mike Leach isn't known for his real defensive strategy.
Luke Falk didn't play in that game either, so certainly got to note that. All right, so Michigan State there at number 8. Number 7, the Oklahoma Sooners. See you later, Baker Mayfield. Hello, Kyler Murray.
This is going to be interesting. He played a little bit this year, of course. Kyler Murray is the former Texas A&M transfer. I'm excited to see kind of what they do there. I think, Brian, what you'll see is you will see less passing from Murray in the Oklahoma offense. They're going to use his legs a little bit more.
Yeah, but that's not to say he's not a good passer. Anytime you lose a Baker Mayfield, somebody who's a 3-time Heisman,
it's a natural drop-off.
Yeah, it's going to be somewhat of a drop-off. But Kyler Murray is former 5-star recruit, committed to A&M, transferred into Oklahoma. He is extremely talented and is perfect for the system that Oklahoma likes to run. You'll see him utilize the run more, but he's still a very capable passer, and we saw that when he came in a couple times for Mayfield this year, specifically at the end of some blowouts. The difference with Oklahoma this year, I think, will be the Big 10 is strong, or Big 12 is stronger. I think that's where you'll see them maybe lose 1 or 2 more games than last year, not necessarily because of a huge drop-off in their offense, but because of the strength of schedule they'll have to play.
I'll tell you what, Kyler Murray this year in the passing game was 18 of 21 for 359 yards and 3 TDs. Better numbers than Baker in terms of efficiency. Just throwing it out there.
I'm sure Baker would have loved to go up against other teams' defensive scrubs, too, when Murray got on the field.
I'm excited to see. I think what we'll see a lot of on offense, I think you're going to see a ton of read option with Kyler Murray and Rodney Anderson. I think that's
going to be RPOs.
A lot of RPOs. That's going to be very tough to stop. Oklahoma kind of rebuilt their offense really this year with Baker Mayfield returning. So most of those guys are going to come back this year, minus tight end Mark Andrews and Orlando Brown, which is a big loss up front. He's a mauler in the ground game. This should be another really good Oklahoma team. They're going to be a very popular playoff pick, especially with Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray, of course, a popular dark horse Heisman, I think.
Yes, I would agree.
I'm tracking the comments right now. Mandy chiming in saying we're all crazy for putting Oklahoma at 7. I don't know if that means we got to put them higher, we got to put them lower. So Mandy, let us know. Give us a little more detail here where we're falling flat on that one. Oklahoma at number 7 in our way too early 2018 top 25. We're inching our way to number 1. We're live here from the Georgia World Congress Center, the Fan Central, as we get you ready for Alabama and Georgia. Saban, Smart, going at it tonight, 8 o'clock on ESPN. Cam Rogers alongside Tom Downey and Brian Rauf here. Get to that game later, but let's roll through our rankings here and taking a look at the teams that we've already talked about, 25 through 21 here, Texas, South Carolina, Mississippi State, Florida State, and Oregon there, Tom.
I got a prediction here. I will not be surprised if one of these teams in this bottom 5 of the top 25 is in the top 10 by the end of the year.
I would agree.
I think that there's some good sleeper teams here.
I think my guess among the group would be Oregon, given the lack of top-end teams in the Pac-12, but it could really be any of them. Other than Mississippi State, because we talked about them hitting the SEC West wall.
There you go. 20 through 16 here. West Virginia, UCF, the national champions, USC, TCU, and LSU. Where is the ceiling for UCF?
Well, I think we just saw it in reality. But for next year, I think it's going to be kind of what South Florida's ceiling was this year, where they were a really good team. They won double-digit games. They got into a solid enough bowl game, but they weren't enough to get into the playoff or into a New Year's Six Bowl.
They'll be in contention for a New Year's Six Bowl again as the best Group of 5 team. I don't know if they'll get it, but there's no real clear-cut contender to take it from them. So they'll be in that mix again, but not in the national championship mix.
All right, 15 through 11 here. We got Michigan, Virginia Tech, Stanford, Washington, Notre Dame. I could see in this category here some major busts. You know what I mean? Like major disappointments for some reason.
I actually agree. I think you could see a regression from Notre Dame if they can't get the ball moving on the ground and Wimbush doesn't improve as a passer. If Bryce Love leaves and Stanford's KJ Castell does not improve, that could be an issue there. You could see a sophomore slump maybe from Josh Jackson at Virginia Tech. And if Michigan doesn't have Shea Patterson, you could see the exact same year that we just saw.
Well, I trust Michigan's defense to keep them at least what they were this year.
Agree.
I trust David Shaw to keep Stanford at least what they were this year. Virginia Tech, I think, has some bust potential with Jackson, like you said, and the lack of top-end talent and performance against top-end teams. Notre Dame, another team that offense doesn't improve at all, could go into what they were 2 years ago with DeShone Kizer, where they only won 4 games. So this group is kind of hit or miss. They have more stability at some of the key positions, which is why they're ranked higher in the preseason. But there's also less upside, I think, with a lot of these teams as there are the ones ranked 20 to 16.
I agree.
By the way, follow-up from Mandy. She wants Oklahoma ranked higher. She thinks Murray will surprise us all. There you go.
It would not surprise me. We'll know in the first 3 games if Murray's can be that guy and repeat as a playoff team or not.
If he lives up to his hype and ceiling, they'll be in great shape to make it back to the playoff again.
Some more comments coming in. We've got Simon. You may lose a little steam this year, but watch out for 2020.
I won't even look that far ahead.
2019.
I would assume 2019 as well.
Yeah.
If Kyler Murray can just steadily improve, I think the year after that, with a lot of those key guys coming back again, they're going to be
a lot of the contributors were freshmen, so that when they'll be juniors and draft eligible, and that'll be the year, I think.
And I think here's the thing with Oklahoma: they're going to be in the top 10 consistently under Lincoln Riley from what we've seen thus far in the way that they've recruited.
Yeah.
Sammy chiming in. Murray will be just fine. OU will win the Big 12. It's tradition, guys.
That I agree with. They will win the Big 12.
I think they'll face more competition for it than they have in years past. It's not going to be them and Oklahoma State going up in Bedlam and them having their way with the Cowboys, but I agree. I think the Sooners will come away with the Big 12 title again.
And Jason chiming in. Watch out for Mississippi State as a sleeper. Moorhead, he can do wonders on the offensive side.
If Fitzgerald comes back healthy and if Moore can get him going through the area in terms of a deep passer, I think that could be a threat there. I still think they'll finish with 8, 9, 10 wins. Not quite up to win the SEC West, but they're going to be a top 25 team for most of the year, assuming Moorhead is what I think he is.
The best they can do is third in the SEC West because they're not getting past Alabama, they're not getting past Auburn. If LSU doesn't get good quarterback play, Mississippi State can beat them and take that spot as number 3 team in the SEC West. But as a sleeper, they're not getting to the SEC championship game. They're not going to be in the playoff picture because of the division they play in and having to face Auburn and Alabama.
Appreciate the comments, guys. Keep them coming as we pick up where we just left off in our way to early 2018 top 25 rankings. Taking a look here at number 6, the Canes of Miami. Are they back, Tom?
See, just like Texas, every year once they come back, we get 2 years of saying they're back, right? We're just making sure, Miami's back. And I think what I like most about this Miami team, this was a year ahead of schedule for Miami.
Yep.
They were not supposed to be this good right away. They were supposed to have a bit of a rebuilding year because Brad Kaya left. The defense was very young. A lot of the key players on offense were young as well. They returned a lot of talent this year. And I think that Miami is once again going to be an ACC championship contender. They didn't show up in the championship game this year. I think that they have a good chance to make it back and actually show up this year. The defense is full of young, talented players. A lot of their top guys, like Jaquan Johnson, the safety, they're coming back. They've decided to not go pro. They don't want to end the year that they ended. So the turnover chain will be back again for Miami.
Well, that's the question. Their defense was so good because of how many turnovers they forced. It wasn't necessarily because of yards allowed or points allowed or things of that nature. They weren't great at stopping you. They were great for taking the ball from you. And while that's a good skill to have, it's tough to repeat. We don't see teams usually repeat that year after year after year. So that'll be something interesting to see if they can repeat that success again and forcing turnovers. And I want to see more consistency out of Malik Rozier, especially late in the season. He was the guy who held them back late in the year when they had their late season collapse.
You guys.
We're going to get a great test for Rozier and Miami. They open the year against LSU.
Huge.
That's going to be a great matchup there in Arlington to kind of open the season. They have a relatively favorable schedule. They do go on the road to face Virginia Tech, but it's another manageable year for Miami. They can very much be where they were last year. Especially to beat LSU, we could be sitting here in October, November saying, hey, Miami, are they going to be a team in the playoff?
They'll be in the mix. I think they'll be in the mix with Clemson in the ACC. I think Clemson's still the clear-cut favorite. But if they can get consistent quarterback play out of Rozier and continue to force turnovers, they'll be right in that mix again.
All right, so there's Miami there at number 6. Tracking the comments, still Tristan, Jaden, Teddy, Chad. We appreciate all the comments coming in. Keep them coming here as we get to the top 5 in our rankings. At number 5, the Badgers of Wisconsin. Jonathan Taylor, Hornibrook, they're coming back. It's going to be a ferocious offense, I think, Brian.
Yeah, Hornibrook is 30 years a starter. You want to see him become a bit of a better passer, more prolific than he has been in the past, but Jonathan Taylor coming back. I mean, he could rush for 2,000 yards next year. Nobody would bat an eye. I mean, he's one of the top Heisman contenders going in next year, and people expect him to build on what he did this year. So I think the offense will be good again. The defense has to replace a lot of players, but as we've seen from Wisconsin in the past, that's not usually a problem for them. And so, especially in the Big Ten West, where there's no competition at all, we'll see them back in the playoff mix again next year.
And you say that, but at the same time, playing in the Big Ten West, lack of competition, is there still that lack of respect card that's going to be thrown around next year?
Oh, 100%. And I think that's going to be the case for much of the early part of the year. Wisconsin's schedule this year is not as bad, easy as it was. They do have some tougher games. They actually go on the road to Iowa, on the road to Michigan, on the road against Northwestern, and on the road against Penn State. So their 4 toughest games are all going to be road games. Still no Ohio State on the schedule this year for Wisconsin. So it's going to be tougher, but I think another year for Jonathan Taylor, another year for Alex Hornibrook, and that's the key. Hornibrook has to become a better pure passer. He has relied on the defense in the ground game. He looked better in the bowl game, but we saw him against Ohio State. That was why Wisconsin was not in the playoff, because he was not good enough yet. Now, he's still very young. He still has some room to develop, but he has to improve for Wisconsin to get into the playoff.
Agreed.
All right, as we have a reaction poll here for the folks at home, Jonathan Taylor will certainly be in the Heisman conversation in 2018. Throw in your thoughts about this, folks. Who is the early Heisman favorite next season? Jonathan Taylor, Khalil Tate out of Arizona, Jalen Hurts for Alabama, or perhaps other? Where are you guys leaning?
I will take the field here in the end. I'll take the field.
Take the field.
I agree. There's no clear-cut favorite like there has been the past couple years. Even if there was a clear-cut favorite like Sam Darnold, they never win. It's always somebody who's sort of in that middle-of-the-road pack who emerges, kind of overexceeds expectations a little bit. I think we'll see someone like that, maybe a Jared Stidham from Auburn or Justin Herbert from Oregon. If those seem to do well, I think we'll see someone sort of in that mix win the award instead of one of the favorites.
Well, the audience is probably hearing a familiar song right now. It's the fight song of the Alabama Crimson Tide. We've got the band going right behind us here at the Georgia World Congress Center. You've heard that song so many times.
If they're going for volume, they already beat Georgia.
Yes.
It was definitely louder than the Bulldogs band for sure.
Crowd's about the same. Speaks to the 50-50 split we've seen here today. Georgia fans showed up earlier in the weekend, but it's going to be, I think, a pretty 50-50 split tonight in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Yeah, I had a buddy in college that always picked his games based on who had the bigger team flag, so let's pick based on the band volume here. I think Alabama's going to win.
Ooh, okay, all right. Prediction from Tom Downey. You got to love it. All right, so we got the pep rally going behind us. We've got some good content coming right at you. Just had a reaction poll about the early Heisman favorites. How about your thoughts on your way too early 2018 #1 team? Is it Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State? Getting a lot of comments in the comment section about Ohio State. And I don't want you guys to tip your hand just yet, but is there an argument to be made for all 4 of those teams?
I really think there is, and I think there are legitimate concerns for all 4 of those teams. For Ohio State, it's, hey, who's the quarterback? Can they be a little bit better or more consistent than J.T. Barrett? For Clemson, it's, can Kelly Bryant take that next step forward? Can they replace what's probably going to be some big losses on the defensive side of the ball? For Georgia, it's how do they get the ground game back going, because they're going to lose Michelle and Chubb. And then for Alabama, it's can they be Alabama again?
Every one of those teams has questions, but one of them, particularly Alabama, has less and has answered those questions routinely year after year.
All right, folks, throw in your votes, and we are tracking them live here on Chat Sports. Got a comment from Larry. Larry, some brutally honest analysis. I'm a lifelong Georgia fan, but we're losing some major weapons this year. The recruitment will keep us in the mix, but I wouldn't put us in the top 3. Larry, you are a fantastic foreshadower, because guess what? We've got the Bulldogs checking in at #4 in our rankings, and some refreshing honesty from a lifelong fan there, Tom.
Yeah, I think that's actually a very accurate take, because they do lose a lot of key players, especially Michelle and Chubb. That ground game has been unbelievably good this year for Georgia. And how do they replace it? I'm a big DeAndre Swift fan, but you're asking Swift to replace the production of 2 of the greatest halfbacks in Georgia history? That's not fair to do. So what you're going to need to have happen is Jake Fromm from State Farm has to be better.
There you go.
They do have 2 of the top running backs coming in this recruiting class, led by Zamir White, who is the top running back in this class. So I think we'll still see a running back committee. But again, those are young guys. You got to replace the best rushing duo in college football history,
right,
in terms of yardage. So that's a problem. And it's also easier for fans to be a bit more realistic about their team when you're talking about them being in the top 4 in the national championship game, instead of them being, number 11 and wondering why they're not getting that respect. I think Georgia will be really good again next year. Fromm's development will be key. The rushing attack, replacing a lot of their stars on defense will also be, I think, more key, because that defense has been a real boost for them this year, a real rock for them to rely on when the offense has had some of those problems. So I think that'll be more key. I think they have talent on offense, problem development, and replacing those guys on defense, I think will determine if they can get back in the playoff picture.
And here's the good news for Georgia next year. They play in the SEC, so let's not kid ourselves here. It's not very good. And I think their schedule sets up very well. They do go on to South Carolina early in the year, but they're home against Tennessee, home against Auburn, home against, or the Georgia Tech game, of course, and then on the road against LSU. That's probably one of their toughest games. So no Alabama on the schedule. It sets up well for Georgia to once again be in the SEC title game with 1 or no losses.
I think anytime you go on the road to LSU, I think you count that as a loss. As Les Miles said, especially a night game, Death Valley is where opponents' dreams go to die. So I think you count that as a loss with everybody else, all the other big games coming at home. I think you count all those as wins. I really like South Carolina, but I don't think they're good enough to beat Georgia, even if they get the home field advantage. So I think you're looking at Georgia going 11-1 next year, being the SEC championship game again with a chance to go to the playoff on the line in that game.
And Brad chimed in the comment section talking about the recruiting, Zamir White and Cade Mays and Solier. These are some brand names.
In a year or two, or maybe even sooner, that offensive line for Georgia is going to be incredible if they all develop the way that they should.
It's important to remember, too, that they're freshmen, so there's going to be some struggles. They're not going to be as good as they will be next year.
All right, so there's Georgia there at number 4. Let's get to the top 3 now. At number 3, the Ohio State Buckeyes. Now, I feel like there's going to be a point of contention here. Just saying. Tom?
Well, I'm sure once we got in the top 4, all the fans were going to be arguing for them to be number 1. But I think the good news is with the playoff, all you got to be is top 4.
Yep.
That's all that matters in the end. Get yourself in and see what you can do.
What differentiates Ohio State from the top 2 teams and is why they're number 3 is the question at quarterback. We're having to replace J.T. Barrett, and for all the struggles J.T. Barrett may have had in downfield passing game at times, he was the winningest quarterback, and not the winningest quarterback, but he's the most yardage in Big Ten history. That means something. That shows he wasn't just some guy you're throwing out there. It's someone you're going to have to replace and has big shoes to fill. Dwayne Haskins, Tate Martell, both very good, very capable guys to replace him, but we need to see them prove that on the field.
You know, we've seen this year in and year out from Urban Meyer at Ohio State. They lose a bunch of guys at the NFL draft, often on defense. This year, Denzel Ward's gone. I'll tell you what, Jeffrey Okudah is going to be a stud next year for Ohio State. The defense is not going to miss him. Now, maybe it's a little slow at the start of the year as they get the new guys in, but Nick Bosa's back. It's going to be a loaded Ohio State defense. The quarterback play is what's going to determine their future. I like Dwayne Haskins. I like Tate Martell. I think they'll be able to do it just enough, and J.K. Dobbins should have a monster year for the Buckeyes. He better get fed.
All right, Sammy chiming in the comment section. Ohio State ahead of Oklahoma. How? They both lost quarterbacks, both team leaders. Did we forget the flag plant boomers sooner? Will be in the top 4 again next year's tradition.
I did love the flag plant. I'm not going to deny that. That was awesome. Baker Mayfield should not have apologized. That was a power play. I love it when my quarterback does that. But I think the defense is kind of the differentiator when you're splitting hairs here in the top 10 or so. The defense for Ohio State is going to be a little bit better.
Also, one of the quarterbacks that was lost was the Heisman winner. That makes a big difference as well.
There's that too. So, thank you for the comment there as we go into a reaction poll. Big Ten East favorite in 2018. We just talked about Ohio State there at number 3. Penn State, we got them at number 10. Michigan at 15. Michigan State at 8. So, according to our composite rankings, it's Ohio State.
Yeah, I would say so. I think they go in as a favorite. They'll face some stiff competition, but I think in the end the Buckeyes will win again.
It's Ohio State again for me as well. Like it's the Buckeyes year in and year out. They're going to be an incredible, talented football team, and they are the epitome, along with Alabama and I think Clemson now as well. They do not rebuild. They just reload every year, and they are set in a top 10, top 15, top 5 team year in and year out.
Yep.
All right, so we did number 3. Let's do number 2. The Clemson Tigers. Kelly Bryant coming back at the quarterback position. Clelin Ferrell, though, likely gone?
I would imagine that you see quite a few of those Clemson defenders, especially Clelin Ferrell, declare and go pro. I'm pretty sure that he'll be a first-round pick. I think you could see a guy like Austin Bryant go pro early. The good news is I actually think the best of all of them is Dexter Lawrence, and he's going to be back. He's going to be a high draft pick.
He's only a true sophomore.
Exactly. He's going to be a high draft pick in next year's draft. Yep. This is, again, I think entering this year, and I owe an apology to Clemson fans in general, I undersold what I thought Clemson was going to be. I didn't believe that they were going to be a top team. I didn't think that they were going to be as good as we saw in the past. And I was clearly very wrong about that. Clemson is here to stay. They are not going to disappear every other year. They are going to be a top 5, top 10 team year in and year out. They're going to continue to compete under Dabo Swinney. My biggest concern about Clemson, though, they have got to find a way to have Kelly Bryant become a better passing quarterback. He can run, but we saw it in the bowl game this year. He's not as good when he's forced to pass only.
He's too inconsistent with it. But I do think Clemson proved this year with all their recruiting efforts and things we've seen from the past that they are one of those teams that can reload and you can trust no matter who they lose, we'll have guys in to plug and replace and still play at a high level. Up until this year, it's pretty much just been Alabama and Ohio State had been there, but nobody was on Alabama's level. Clemson proved this year they were on Alabama's level in terms of being able to reload, plug guys in, and stay at the next level. They had experienced that kind of success before they had with Deshaun Watson. When you lose a program changer like that, there are questions. Most everybody but Alabama takes a step back the next year. And Clemson proved this year that they didn't. By not taking that step back, they proved that they're in that tier with Alabama as teams that just reload and you trust and you say, okay, this guy's going to be great even though I've never seen him play before.
All right, so there's Clemson at number 2. We love when people can kind of foresee the future for us. Joshua chiming in the comment section. It's not hard to see it's going to be Alabama. Josh, you got us.
Yeah.
There they are.
Maybe the pep rally behind us. I don't know.
The Crimson
Plot
Tide.
twist, Miami of Ohio or Maryland, right, buddy?
Oh,
There
hey,
we
little
go.
action. That is Alabama at number 1. They are, of course, playing tonight against Georgia. If they win tonight, they will cement themselves for the 2018 rankings.
And I think regardless of the game, I think they'll end up being number 1 because it's Alabama. And I think that they've earned the reputation of always being the college football playoff champion or favorite at least to be the number 1 team entering the year. And look, I saw a comment where said that they lose a lot on defense. They do that every year.
Yeah.
I mean, there has not been a year Alabama has not lost multiple guys to the NFL draft and often early round draft picks. They got a lot of stud linebackers. Secondary is a little bit thin, but that was kind of their issue entering this year was the secondary was thin. The D-line's going to be great. It's going to be another Alabama year. And I do want to see what happens at halfback. They got a lot of good guys. Well, no Jacobs is back. I want to see if Harris or Scarborough returns. Harris might be more likely compared to Scarborough since he's older.
Yep.
But Jalen Hurts will be back too. If Hurts can be a little bit better as a passer, watch out for that offense, man.
Yeah, Hurts' performance tonight, I think, will play a lot into what the narrative surrounding Alabama is next year. Because if he struggles again, particularly downfield passing, they'll go into this offseason and next season saying, can Jalen Hurts be that guy to win a national title with his downfield passing woes? Do we need to go to Tagovailoa, the backup, who's a true freshman this year from Hawaii? But we're referencing the defense. The linebacking core, pretty much everybody on the linebacking core got hurt in that LSU game. And so they were one of the best units in the country, and they replaced them with all their young linebackers who are going to be there for the next year or two, 2018, 2019. And they've still been one of the best units in the country. So that shows you again, like, we've seen this from every year, but we have proof this time the defense is not going to drop off because of the guys that they have. Running game will be fine even if Harris leaves, Damian Harris leaves, because Najee Harris is there, the third stringer, who was the number 1 overall recruit in the country this past year. They have Joshua Jacobs, who was as a true freshman last year, saw carries. He's the 4th guy now, but he was averaged over 6 or 7 yards carry last year as a freshman. They'll add somebody else. They'll be fine in that regard. They got an outside account really. Most of their receiving core is all freshmen. They'll be fine. They'll be fine.
All right, Alabama at number 1 in our way too early 2018 top 25 rankings.